The imposter husband. The moment Laura buried him, she thought it was over. The damp earth, the moonless night, the silence that swallowed her hurried breaths, everything had conspired to keep her secret. Her husband Daniel was gone forever. She had planned it meticulously. The poison, the careful dragging of his body into the woods behind their house, the shallow grave she had dug with trembling hands. The weight of the dirt pressing down on his lifeless form had given her a sense of finality. She had stood over the disturbed earth, chest heaving, whispering, "It's done." But it wasn't. Because 2 nights later, Daniel walked through the front door. Laura had been washing dishes when she heard the familiar creak of the door swinging open. The sound sent ice crawling up her spine. She turned, and there he was, standing in the doorway, brushing rainwater from his dark hair, just as he always did. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the sink. "Daniel?" He smiled, that easy, casual smile that had once charmed her. Who else? Her mind raced. She had watched him die, had buried him with her own hands. And yet, he was standing there, shaking off his coat, moving toward her with the same presence, the same voice, the same scent of cedar wood and aftershave. She swallowed, forcing her face into a mask of calm. I thought you were working late." He chuckled. "You forget too easily. I told you I'd be back early tonight." "Oh, you're supposed to be dead." The words clawed at her throat, but she swallowed them. If he wasn't Daniel, then who, what, was he? If she reacted, if she panicked, he would know. And she could never let him suspect that she knew he wasn't supposed to be here. So she nodded, smiled. "Right. Must have slipped my mind." That night, she lay stiff beside him, listening to his slow, steady breathing. Her mind spun with possibilities. A hallucination? Had she imagined the whole thing? No. She had seen the grave, had covered his face with dirt. But he was here, warm, breathing, alive. And then she noticed the first inconsistency. Daniel always slept on his right side. Always. But tonight he slept on his left. A small thing, insignificant to anyone else. But Laura knew. This was not her husband. Yet she could not question him. Because if he wasn't Daniel, then where had he come from? And if he was, then who was buried beneath the earth? She waited until the sky paled with morning before she slipped out of bed. Daniel, or whatever he was, slept soundly. She dressed quickly, heart hammering, and hurried to the woods. The grave was undisturbed. The dirt still damp. She dug with bare hands, her fingers scraping against the soil until she hit something solid. Her breath hitched. A hand. A dead, stiff hand. She dug faster, uncovering the face beneath the dirt. And there he was. The real Daniel. Lifeless. Motionless. Exactly where she had left him. She staggered back, panting, hands shaking. Then who was in her house? A twig snapped behind her. She whirled around. Daniel stood at the edge of the clearing, watching her. And he smiled. Laura's stomach lurched. Her pulse pounded against her ribs as she stared at the impossible figure standing a few feet away. Daniel. Alive. Or something pretending to be him. The wind stirred the trees, making the branches creak like old bones. The damp scent of the disturbed earth mixed with the metallic tang of her sweat. She was frozen, caught between the undeniable truth at her feet and the horrifying presence before her. Daniel, or the thing wearing his face, tilted his head, his smile widening as if he had caught her in the act of something shameful. "What are you doing out here, Laura?" His voice was smooth, casual, just like it always had been. Her mind screamed at her to run, to deny everything. But she forced herself to stay still, to keep her face blank. I couldn't sleep," she stammered. "Just needed some air." He took a slow step forward, his boots crunching against the fallen leaves. "You're shaking." Of course she was. Her hands were still filthy with grave dirt, her heart beating like a trapped bird. "I got cold," she lied. Daniel's eyes flicked downward, landing on her hands. "You've been digging." She swallowed hard. "Gardening." His smile didn't falter, but something in his eyes darkened, just for a fraction of a second. A flicker of knowing. "Come back inside," he said after a beat, his voice even. "It's late." She hesitated. There were two options: go with him and pretend everything was fine, or bolt into the darkness and never look back. But she couldn't run. Not yet. So she nodded, brushed her hands against her jeans, forced her legs to move. She walked past him, heart hammering so loudly she was sure he could hear it. Every instinct told her not to turn her back on him, but she had no choice. The walk back to the house was excruciating. She could feel his gaze on her, unblinking, as if he were studying her every move. Inside, she went straight to the sink, scrubbing the dirt from her hands. He stood in the doorway watching her. "Gardening in the middle of the night?" he asked lightly. She forced a chuckle. "I couldn't sleep. Needed to clear my head." A long pause. Then, "You used to hate gardening." Her breath caught. "Used to." The real Daniel had hated how she avoided the backyard, how she winced at the feel of dirt under her nails. But this thing, it knew that. And it had just used it against her. "I guess people change," she said quietly, keeping her back to him. Another silence. Then she heard his footsteps retreating. Laura stood there for a long time, staring at her reflection in the window, watching his blurred figure move through the house like a shadow. She needed to figure out what he was. Over the next few days, Laura observed him with the precision of a scientist studying a specimen. At first glance, he was identical to Daniel. He moved the same way, spoke the same way, even remembered the little details, their routines, their history. But then there were the subtle inconsistencies. The way he suddenly drank coffee black when Daniel had always drowned it in cream. The way he hummed a tune she had never heard before. The way his eyes lingered on her just a little too long, as if he was waiting for her to slip up. Then came the things he didn't remember. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table, she casually asked, "Do you remember our honeymoon in Italy?" His fork paused. Just for a second. "Of course," he said smoothly. "Where did we stay again?" she pressed, watching his face. Another pause. Almost imperceptible. "The villa, something," he said lightly, stabbing his food. "You always had a better memory than me." Wrong. Daniel had loved that villa. San Marco, he had repeated the name over and over, calling it their perfect little hideaway. The real Daniel would never have forgotten. Whoever, whatever, it wasn't him. That night, Laura knew what she had to do. She had to see the grave again. To make sure. She waited until Daniel was asleep, if he even slept. The house was silent as she slipped outside, heart hammering with every step. The woods seemed darker tonight, as if they too had sensed something unnatural lurking within them. She reached the grave, breathless, and began digging. The dirt was still loose, still damp. It hadn't been touched. A few frantic scoops later, her fingers met flesh. The body was still there. Still decomposing. Still unmistakably him. She gasped, staggering back, bile rising in her throat. Then a twig snapped. She whipped around. Daniel stood there watching her. And this time he didn't bother smiling. "Found what you were looking for?" Her mind went blank with terror. The body was right there, unmistakably real. Which meant this Daniel, this thing standing before her, was something else entirely. Something that shouldn't exist. She opened her mouth to scream, but he took a slow step forward. "You know, Laura," he murmured, "I was wondering when you'd start digging." The ground felt like it was tilting beneath her. What are you?" He exhaled, almost amused. "I think the better question is, what are you going to do now?" And for the first time she saw it, just for a flicker. The thing behind his eyes. Not Daniel. Not a ghost. Something worse. And it was enjoying this. Laura turned and ran. She didn't look back. She didn't stop. But even as she reached the house, as she locked every door and pressed her back against the wall, she knew. He was still out there. Watching. Waiting. and he had no intention of leaving.